Hello and welcome, everybody. It's Jason and Zach again from RTB Technologies. And so, recently, we've heard a lot of conversations surrounding cyber insurance. We want to address a couple of things here because a lot of times what we hear is people think cyber insurance is a safety net, right? Which in theory and what people would like to happen, yeah, it is a safety net, so to speak, but also it's a contract. In all reality, what we're talking about is an agreement between you, the policy holder, and the insurance carrier. So if a breach happens and you file a claim, that insurance carrier is going to ask you two questions. They're going to say, can you prove that you did all the things you committed to when you signed up for this policy? And number two, can you prove that you followed the standards required of you based on your industry? So, yes, there is a lot more to an insurance policy than most people might think. Zach, what's your take on this?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to the fact that there's a few things you need to make sure to even be covered really by your policy. Like you said, Jason, you need to make sure that, or the insurance company is going to make sure that you're actually doing what you said you were doing when you did that little insurance questionnaire. You know, when you first get your policy, and every year they ask you to answer some questions. Well, they're going to make sure you're actually doing it, because if you're not, that's an immediate denial, right? Because that's false representation, and ipso facto means that contract's null and void. Some other things that you need to look out for is depending on what that contract states. So if you are breached, you have a duty to notify the insurance company. And if you don't within a set period of time, typically it's inside those policies. I think it's within the first 24 48 hours, something like that usually. Then they're also going to deny your claim because it's failure to notify. So that's also a breach of the contract. There's a lot of little gotchas in contracts that people don't necessarily pay attention to, and like you said, their false sense of security is really what they are. Because if you're not checking it every year for updates, then you're just not going to be covered.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it does vary from policy to policy. It varies from carrier to carrier. And so, it's very important to understand the terms within your policy. Make sure you understand the coverage, what's being covered and what's not. For example, is it business email compromise covered? Are there vague policy triggers? Or what if a third party is compromised that you use? Let's just say Amazon Web Service, AWS. What if something happens to them? Will your policy cover you for that? And then really understanding what's covered with the specifics in terms of incident response, ransomware recovery, business interruptions, legal defense. This is all on the fine print.
Yeah, you're again, you're talking the language that our industry now knows. Because of the amount of policies that have been denied or claims that have been denied, our industry and cybersecurity in general is really taking to heart these little intricacies that are introduced into these contracts. Because the insurance companies are in business to make money, they understand that by denying claims, they make money, and they try and do everything they can to make sure that you follow the letter of the law in those contracts to get your payouts if you were to be in that situation. So you really need to pay attention to these things, because otherwise what you could have is a really expensive piece of paper that does nothing.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. And when you were talking, it reminds me of kind of an analogy that I like to use when talking to people sometimes, which is I put insurance companies and casinos in the same boat, right? Neither one of them like to lose money. And if they are losing money, they're either going to remove the game or change the rules. And that's what we're seeing happen within the cyber insurance company right now. And another way of looking at it too, there's just not enough historical data to really inform their decision making surrounding coverage. It's an evolving industry, and these insurance carriers at the same time, not only are they trying to make money, but they're also trying to stay in business. So when you look at it from that perspective, it is a constant back and forth battle here. And so, one of the things that you want to make sure of is when you're talking about your coverage is that number sufficient? When you take into consideration, will it cover the ransom that you might have to pay? Will it cover the recovery costs that you have to pay, and then also business downtime?
Yeah, because again, it could be an expensive piece of paper that doesn't do anything for you. So there's a lot of intricate things involved, and that's why companies like ours get involved with our clients to make sure that they have the coverage they need and it's actually doing what they think it's doing and not just, there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, lots of discussions going around the industry, yeah, not only our industry, but the insurance industry, and then also within the industries of the policyholders themselves. This is so huge right now, and it really kind of speaks to a lot of the things that we've been talking about here lately, Zach. Whether it's the sophistication and quantity of incidents going up based on cybercrime, and cybercrime as an economy, and then insurance claims being denied at the rate of almost half, which is like 44% of all claims are being denied, followed by people getting sued with class action lawsuits. So it really is a three-pronged approach here that people have to watch out for. So anything else to add as we wrap this up, Zach?
Not really. The only thing I would add is if anyone out there has any questions about cyber insurance, cyber liability insurance, and wants to get a second set of eyes, reach out to us. We're happy to oblige.
Absolutely. Yes, we're a resource. All right, Zach, have a good one. Appreciate you. Great conversation as always. Take care. Take care, everybody. See you next time.